Welcome to the Buy Box Experts podcast. We bring to light the unique opportunities brands face in today's e-commerce world.
Hey, and welcome to the Buy Box Experts podcast. This is Eric Stopper. Today's episode is brought to you by Buy Box Experts. Buy Box Experts takes ambitious brands and makes them unbeatable. We've got a team of consultants, and honestly, it's free, and we're actually pretty knowledgeable over here. We'd love to talk with you about your business. There are probably questions you have about the intricacies of Seller Central, or why your fees look a certain way, or why you can't spend all of the advertising dollars that you've allocated to actually, populate ads. Lots of different things. We know about all of them. Go to buyboxexperts.com, click on the free analysis button, and you'll be connected with me, a member of my team. Today, I am joined by Taylor Smits, co-founder of My FBA Prep, a national network of warehouses that empowers e-commerce sellers. They have a powerful technology platform that provides Amazon sellers, whether they're wholesale or private label or online arbitrage, with next-level FBA prep services. Taylor's a hustler, a seller like you and me, and a friend. Taylor, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Eric. Excited to be here.
Oh, man. So there's a lot of stuff I want to pick your brain about. But what are you doing during this whole COVID outbreak?
So I'm lucky to say that we are as busy as ever. Some of that has to do with the restrictions Amazon's putting on sellers and what that means. Many of them have transitioned into selling FBM. But I basically was in Europe. I had just come off 2 months with my FBA Prep business partner. We were cracking down on some systems. We were in Bali. And I was visiting a friend in Norway on my way back to the States, and things got it looked like I might get caught there. And so I got on the next flight home. I am cooped up in an attic at my parents' house where I grew up in the Midwest in Indiana. No more digital nomading for me, at least for a few more months. And that's where I am. That's where I'm doing this podcast from.
Yeah, I'll just get a satellite phone and get on a horse and ride across the countryside.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that you have a bunch of people who are transitioning to FBM. I had a friend at another agency called AO2 Marketing. He brought to my attention the fact that, and it was one account, right? He saw this account, and he went to the page, the actual listing, and it said that on his Prime listing that it would ship in 30 days. And so then he was like, okay, what's going on here? So he went through manually on every single one of the products on that. And they were like picking and choosing which ones were actually going to send out on time. And I wanted to come to you. You're the expert in this kind of FBA, FBM world. What is going on, and what's kind of the latest word?
Yeah, so that's really common across all sellers right now. And what's happening is people are seeing that their FBA listings are 3 to 4 weeks out in terms of delivery times. So what you'll see a lot of Amazon gurus saying right now is FBA and FBM have flip-flopped. And the question then becomes, well, what does that mean? And it's two things. The first is in terms of delivery times. Typically FBA is quicker, obviously 2 days, right, for the prime buyers. Right now you're looking at 3 to 4 weeks on, I would say, just throwing out a number, maybe 80 to 90% of your listings. Certainly things that are non-essential as categorized by Amazon. The other piece of that, FBA and FBM is flip-flopped, is that as a seller, what you're going to see is you're going to see at least double, if not more, of your sales coming from FBM. And of course, the reason why is it's being delivered quicker. So Amazon is, in some cases, giving the buy box preferring FBM because of the delivery times, also taking into account price. But you're seeing that quite a bit right now on the catalog. That probably has to do with all of the things going on at the fulfillment centers, but you'll also notice in sort of the same vein that Amazon has taken down a lot of their, let's say, advertising real estate on the site. So if you're searching for items, you will see less ads than you typically do. And a lot of the Amazon inside sort of news media outlets are saying, oh my gosh, is Amazon that crowded in the fulfillment centers that they're actually wanting to sort of suppress sales a little bit? Yeah, exactly. Wow. And I think that's true. And at least they're reacting sort of in some ways responsibly. I have a bone to pick with how they generally treat sellers. One example, I think Greg Mercer does a good job on a news clip I've seen circulated no less than 10 times last week, where he's saying that their data suggests that Amazon is involved in the buy box, and 4,000 sellers have been suspended for price gouging. Amazon's in the buy box in many of those things, and he's saying, I sure hope the Attorney General holds Amazon at least to the standard that Amazon is holding its sellers, if not to a higher standard, because they are the big corporate company. I think Greg Mercer said it best, so I won't comment further.
Oh man, I need to bring Greg on again. He was actually like the third person we ever brought on the podcast, and a lot has happened since then.
Yeah.
So I want to transition a bit and just ask, kind of like, for those who are listening to this, who are stuck in their house, in their attic, in their friend's house, usually, right? Like regardless of the COVID outbreak, for those that are listening to this, you got out of it, right? Or you were in corporate finance, was it?
I was a corporate headhunter. I was a recruiter across several different industries. It started out in finance, then I went to an ad agency, and then ultimately I ended up at a company called Refinery 29, which is an online website for women. And one of the best things that came out of that experience was meeting my partner in my FBA prep, who introduced us to the third partner, and we sort of all came together. And as I say, the rest is history.
Yeah. Well, I want to know a little bit about the selling on Amazon too. So, 2.5 years or so, you've been selling products. What did you heard this bug, Amazon, someone got you into it. How did that happen?
Yeah. So, when I was in the corporate world for about 11 years, since end of 2009 is when I started selling online. So my first e-commerce was doing concert tickets, sporting events, that sort of thing. And it wasn't until 2016 that I got into what most people think of as e-commerce, which was a drop shipping store, then a private label product, then wholesale. And as you can tell, I started becoming hooked on all of these different models. And, just as was the case 3-4 years ago and continues to be the case now, it was really the volume and traffic of Amazon that kind of pulled me away from the tickets and other e-commerce stuff and said, this is where I want to be. This is where I want to hang my hat and make a name for myself. And so and I hear this from a lot of people. There was never a moment where I said, I'm going to leave the corporate world and go here, and that's my goal. For me, it was like, I didn't even realize that I was obsessed with e-commerce until, I would be in my office late at night in New York, which was the biggest space that I had was my office. And, I'd be laying out samples from China for a private label product. And people would forget, my colleagues would forget their keys, and they'd come back into the office at 10 p.m. and they'd see all the lights on, and they'd be like, what are you doing here? And I'd have all these products laid out on a table with the camera, and I'd be emailing people in China because the time zone worked well. It was their morning there, and then I was like, man, I think I'm addicted, and here I am, and it's like all the doors opened up and everything, and now I'm full time, and I think that whenever I see people with a hint of that, I always just encourage them, run faster at whatever your goal is, and try and blow down those doors, because once you're doing the thing that you like, your life's just going to be better. I don't prescribe to the whole fire your boss, all that stuff. It's just when you're in control of a larger percentage of your life, you're just going to be happier in general. So
it's been much happier. Good transition then.
Yeah. It's been great, to be honest. It's been great.
Now, I mean, you sold concert tickets. Okay. This world is very close to me. I've got a Beautiful Mind hat on. This is from John Bellion's last album. So concerts are very near and dear to my heart. And like those that are listening right now who might not care about concerts, just bear with me. Okay. I'm coming to Taylor with a question because right now, COVID-19, there's 180,000 people dead. And, it's definitely a serious issue. We don't feel it as much here in Utah. It seems very distant. And this will definitely have an expiration date on it because eventually we'll get a handle on it. But the entertainment industries are screwed right now, right? And everyone's kind of aware of this. People who do concerts and events and management for artists, they can't really do anything. I'm wondering, right? I want to pick your brain. If you were them in this scenario and you have all the tools that you have today, they seem to just be laying down. What would you do to kind of offset the fact that people can't congregate and go to a concert?
I think there's an opportunity for virtual events that are not trying to be the same thing as concerts. So for example, when I was really heavy into the tickets game, I would purchase all kinds of upgrades on a standard ticket, which typically you get through fan clubs. There's no real big secret there. If you're in the fan clubs, you'll hear about them. You can get them through, your city card, private pass, your Amex special events, et cetera, et cetera. And if you choose a particular artist, they'll also have the offers if you're in their, I say fan club, but it's an email list.
Yeah.
And I think that they could do, if they really felt like it, they could do kind of in your home concerts that might be for 100 or 1,000 people at a time, where you could be requesting a song and maybe they'll play that song, or maybe they'll be reading in the chat page your name, and that experience will merit paying $50, $100 for that experience. But I think it's important to not just try and force things virtually, but say, okay, if it has to be virtually, how can we enhance the experience by using the platform? So let's take one example, which would be Peloton right now. Peloton has done an amazing job. First of all, they kept going. They were in their studios in New York City, broadcasting their classes just with no audience. So no live people working out, just the trainer, if you will.
Yeah, there's a person and a camera, basically.
And then I think public pressure led them to say, actually, we shouldn't be going in. New York's one of the epicenters of the pandemic. And so now the instructors are doing it from their home. But I think what you'll find, and this is like going on this week, and I think what's going to happen is their audience, their followers, and basically the Peloton subscribers are going to say, we love this personalization. You see inside the apartment, they mostly live in New York, of your favorite instructor. So what's the parallel there that the artist in this case can take and sort of apply, where you're not saying, hey, this video inside of my apartment is as good as the studio. No, it's different. It's like a little bit more raw. It's a little bit more informal. It's intimate. You might hear a dog bark, you might hear a phone ring, but it's like, who cares? You get to see your favorite instructor and they're calling out your name from the leaderboard. I think that's an interesting parallel that maybe people in the entertainment industry should consider.
Yeah. And well, the thing that they're going to battle against, right, is the free TikTok, Snapchat, YouTube of the world.
Yeah.
And I think that it would take, well, I don't know, Peloton, do we know how many people are watching those videos?
I mean, they're massive right now. I think they're, if they haven't IPO'd, I think they're leading up to it. But yeah, their whole model started with John Foley is the founder there and CEO. And I don't know what the name of the company was, but I think it was SoulCycle. His wife was, putting on her calendar 24 hours in advance. As soon as the classes would open up, she wanted to be at the studio where her favorite instructor was and had to book that. And he said, well, there's plenty of people like me who just can't commit to where I'm going to be a day or two from now. And how do I get my instructor's time slot? And his idea was, how far could we take this? Meaning, if we're going to scale it to, I can do this from my home and I pay for the hardware, the bike, and then it's a software play after that with streaming, which, the world is perfectly ready for now. He said, well, how far does this go? Does it go to, it's like 20 to 40 bikes in a class in a regular studio? And he goes, okay, well, does it stop at 100? Does it stop at 500? Does it stop at 1,000? And then he said, well, does it have to be live? Can you watch recordings? And so here you see this, what I think at the time people would have said, no one's going to want to do that. No one's going to want to watch a recording. No one's going to want to ride something that happened a year ago or a class with an old playlist or whatever. And now what you're seeing is he's made it perfect with all of the the stats and the tracking, the gamification, if you will,
Right.
where you can compete against yourself the last time you took that same class. Where do I fall on the leaderboard?
I mean,
Anyway.
I'm seeing scenarios here. I think that all that's great. I didn't even know all these things about Peloton. I emailed John Foley at one point.
Yeah.
He didn't get back with me. You know, maybe he was busy, maybe he missed it. But I really respect their hustle, and I've seen a whole lot of these mirrors, right, that have a trainer built into them. There's probably 5 brands that are doing
Yeah.
it. And I don't think that it will ever eclipse gym going, right? As soon as that's back on, I'm going to be there, right? No mirror is ever going to tell me how to lift my weights.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
or maybe it will. Maybe I'm just a laggard when it comes to this diffusion of innovation to like totally online personalization. But like if I'm a guitar legend, right? If I'm a member of a guitar band, I'd be challenging people to like, guitar battles and stuff online just to build that. And I feel like for the most part, I haven't seen too much of that. It's mostly just been people posting on TikTok. And, I wonder how long will it take for us to see like major shifts in this industry, or is it just going to get back to normal when this is all said and done? What do you think?
As far as like concerts and sporting events go, I think it will go back to normal. I just can't see a world where all the stadiums that exist out there, all the NCAA Final Four, all the Super Bowl, like, I'm not voting for that. I'm not voting for no Super Bowl, no Mardi Gras, no, fill in the blank, 4th of July, all that. So I think it'll be interesting to see. I'm almost embarrassed to throw out any guesses, because if I look back on this and I'm way wrong, and I'll
I don't think it's going away. I think we're going to see changes in customer behavior, which we have, and maybe it'll never go past that point. So you're selling on Amazon right now, right? You have brands that are live.
Yep.
What's been your experience? Just the latest scoop for Amazon. Are you day-to-day managing your own Amazon presence, or do you have somebody that you're outsourcing that to?
I am not. I have an amazing partner who handles most of the day-to-day, but I'm in the account every day, so it's not completely hands-off, and there's no part of the process that I don't still do sometimes. But by and large, my FBA prep is my focus, and I'm not involved in that. My overall experience, I have one account that sells very much non-essential goods, and that account was cut in half, and probably present day is selling about 25% of what it would be doing in a normal month. On the flip side, my other account sells lots of home and kitchen goods, and there was a week there where it was like quite literally 10x, and then I started to run out of inventory, but it's still 3 to 4 times on a daily basis what a normal day, week, month should look like. So for me, it's been a bit of a wash. But what's nice about seeing how my partner handles the account is I can sort of see from a seller's perspective exactly what my prep customers are going through. Some of them have been completely throttled, having to switch to FBM, which we already covered a little bit, or not getting the volume because the ship dates are so far out, or even worse, they're getting the orders and the orders are getting canceled because when customers say, "Hey, it should have arrived at my doorstep 2 days ago," or 2 days for my order, they cancel it, because we have to remember as sellers, we know all the ins and outs of Amazon, but most people aren't looking at the delivery date. They say, "I'm a Prime member, I order it comes in 2 days." So it's kind of worse because it's after the fact, and then you have a high ODR and your account health, et cetera, et cetera. So luckily, once again, Amazon has adjusted to some degree. I got to give them credit. I think it's May 15th. They're through May 15th, they're being less strict on account health things in terms of delayed orders and that sort of thing. So it's a mixed bag.
So all my other stuff is going to go under the radar too. I mean, I'm sure they're just bogged down. You can't be doing 4x of the revenue on accounts like yours and mine and be able to keep up with that overnight.
So I think it's so hard for us to imagine like what the 30,000 foot view is for Amazon. So you figure they have um, 3 to 400,000. I can't remember. I want to say it's like 400,000 like employees worldwide. And they've said because of COVID that they're hiring 100,000 more people basically overnight if they can. I mean, as fast as they can to be working at the fulfillment centers to address the increase. Let's say the increase on the fulfillment centers, which is more orders, right? And all the other ASINs being throttled that are non-essential is a direct result of them saying, let's clear up more real estate in our fulfillment centers in order to accept more goods that people buy during a recession or during a lockdown or a quarantine, whatever term you want to use. If you don't think we're in a recession yet, well, okay, fine, but you might change your mind in a couple of months. And that this actually isn't my theory. My buddy CJ Rosenbaum, who's an Amazon lawyer, gave me this one, so I'll credit him. But he's saying, what do people buy in a recession? And so what Amazon's doing is getting all of our, kegerators out of their fulfillment centers and replacing it with granola bars and oatmeal and, potato chips and whatever people need if they're stuck at home. And I think that's just interesting to see. I can't even imagine. One more stat on the Corona meets Amazon conversation, and that is that since the beginning of March, Jeff Bezos' net worth has gone up to the tune of 25 to 27 billion. I've seen it quoted.
Oh, which makes total sense, right? Like they dropped those stimulus checks in everybody's bank accounts. 40% of that went straight into Amazon's pocket, man. The IRS just set up a tax scheme to get some of that money back. You know what I mean? Like, I got a tinfoil hat on and a chip on my shoulder when it comes to these stimulus checks, but it is what it is, right? It's not.
Yeah. No, I hear you, man. I hear you.
So you mentioned, right, we're probably in this recession, which me as this like only in e-commerce, right? It's pretty much my whole world and it supports my family. I haven't felt it. I'm not feeling the real recess. And I know that there are, millions of people out there whose lives are getting adversely affected. And I want to be sensitive to that. But I'm wondering like, what is it going to take for us to really jumpstart the economy? Obviously, we got to deal with COVID. We got to get that dealt with. But then as soon as it's over, right, what switch are we going to have to flip in order for things to just, to get the flywheel spinning again, so to speak?
Yeah. I don't know, and I don't think anyone else knows either. I was reading an article about China today, who says, and I don't believe it, but they say they're back to normal in terms of restrictions are lifted. You're allowed to go out, you're allowed to go to restaurants, whatever. And what they're seeing is that it's just not happening. People aren't traveling. People aren't going to restaurants. People aren't going to movie theaters. And we're about to be there in, call it a month, call it 2 months. I'm not here to give the timeline as to when we open back up the country, but I think there's going to be a certain lag after it becomes okay to go do the things you would normally do and the time that you actually do the things that you would have normally done. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what it is that, what's the decision that opens back up the NFL? What's the decision that makes you and your family think that you want to go to a movie, whereas the last, I don't know, call it 30 weeks, you're saying, no, I'm staying at home on Friday night. I don't have these answers, but I'm sure people are not going to be lining up to buy, Delta, American, United flights. I just don't see it happening anytime soon. And quite honestly, I'm nervous for the economy of the country. E-commerce is a great place to be right now. Other sectors, I think it's time they buy some e-com courses.
Man, that is so. I mean, you imagine telling Delta, "Hey, have you guys considered e-commerce?" Right? Like, we're turning the Titanic at that point. Yeah. So I'm, I worry about this, and I had a conversation with one of the members of our team here about the worry that people will stop buying products as frequently, right? They'll just focus on kind of battening down the hatches and being prepared for all of this. But it would stand to reason that would be happening right now, right? Like
Yep.
during the time that it's hardest. But then we get these reports about, I sell non-essential goods for sure, and I'm crushing it right now. Like my everything's up. Dog collars, bags, and earplugs, right? Like my sales are going up. So people are still doing the stuff associated with these activities. They still have dogs, right? They still have work needs. And so I'm wondering, have we even hit the tipping point here in the United States, you think? Like, has it actually even gotten at all bad? I mean, New York's shut down.
It's only getting worse. I don't know where we are, but we're going down economically. To your question about will people stop buying goods to the same degree, I don't know about that. I of course am hoping and wishing that they don't, and it continues. I mean, I think for a lot of e-commerce sellers now has been a great time to kind of bear down, focus on their business. They might have more time if they're kind of keeping a normal day job. But you know what you're talking about is deflation, right? It's when all of the public companies are getting less revenue than they normally would because there's less activity and less demand, and they lay people off because they have less revenue. And then the people who are still actively involved in the working economy are getting less and spending less, and it just has a downward spiral effect on yeah. So it's tough, man. It's also tough to juxtapose like a really strong e-commerce business. Our prep business has gone bananas. We're busier than we've ever been. We're constantly partnering with new prep centers, opening up new states that we don't currently work with. And yet at the same time, you see what's going on, the overall trend in the Dow Jones or S&P 500, and you just feel horrible for, or that chart with the unemployment rate, right? Which 3.5 million and 6.5 million, and it's you see that, and you just or food lines on the news where people are having to drive through and pick up. It's tough. I don't know what to think or how to feel about any of it, but I think we're all trying to. I think we're worried first about our health. I think we're worried second about our jobs, and then we're third worried about the bottom line. And if you're so lucky as to be worried about your job or your health, you're in a pretty good, or excuse me, your job or your bottom line, I think you're in a pretty good place, because many people are worried about their health. Yeah.
Well, so I mean, let's switch gears a little bit and just say for maybe the people who they lost their job, it looks really bad. What direction would you send them right now, right? To build their future, right? This could be the perfect opportunity for them to just say, all right, like I'm going to start something apart from this day job. Where would you encourage them to go? Is Amazon the key? Like, should they start looking for U.S. manufacturers and getting a loan to make it all happen? Like, what would you tell the unemployed person right now who wants to leverage the good parts of the economy in an effort to get it moving, right? To kind of make this grand design happen?
To take a phrase to one of the authors and bloggers that I really like, named James Altucher, choose yourself. And that's the name of one of his books. And it's kind of a movement he's inspiring. And what that means is invest in yourself, because the returns when you invest in yourself are always greater than anything else you would invest in. He talks about, people always say, should I invest in a 401k? And there's arguments whether you're getting 6 to 8% or if inflation's eating up all that. But my belief is, when you choose yourself and you take action and you build day by day on the progress you have, the long-term dividends on that are immeasurable. If you can leave your job and provide for your family, there's a monetary case to be made for that. But let's just say you're going to be making the same annually as you were at work. What is it to spend more time with your wife and kids? Or what does it look like to, I'm from the digital nomading community. I don't ever quote unquote vacation, but I do about 10 to 15 countries a year, bouncing around. So like how do you put a value on that? And so I just think that the people who actually say, you know what, I've had, and this was my story. I mean, when I'm in the corporate world, I was making good money, such good money to the point where I felt bad for not being satisfied, for not feeling fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
And the e-commerce thing was always a hobby for me. You know, I make $1,500 here, take my girlfriend to Hawaii, you know, it was great. Right. But I wasn't serious about it. I just loved doing it. And, you know, what I started to realize was that the fulfillment was coming from the thing that I was interested in. I was sort of drawn and pulled into e-commerce saying, I love this. This is so cool. It's so current and modern with all of, you know, using Facebook ads to draw traffic to a website, and you're not holding the inventory because it's being sent directly from a warehouse. And all of that was just perfect for me, because I was like, this is, you know, we're in 2020 now. At the time is a few years ago, but it's like, it just made sense to me. And when I invested in myself, and I'll be the first to say, I've bought like no less than 4 or 5 $2,500 courses on how to do this e-commerce model, you know, drop shipping, private label, multiple wholesale courses. All of them are worth it. I never have felt like, oh, I overpaid, or I didn't learn that much, or I shouldn't have done that. They're all worth it. And that's a mindset shift that I'd love to give people, which is that they're all worth it. And I believe I've adopted this new philosophy. Whenever someone says, you know, how I made like $1 million day trading or whatever, rather than saying that's a scam, often it is, but rather than saying that, I go, wow, that story is true for that guy. Now, will it be true for you? You should spend a lot of time figuring that out. But when you choose yourself and say, I am going to commit to learning that model, you know, Amazon, I highly recommend, because of, again, the wave of traffic and people who are on the platform. But there's tons of other things out there. You know, people are making, you know, 30 grand a month renting out Airbnbs that they don't own and they're renting. You know, great, good for you. Like you've committed to that model. But choose yourself, man, and from there, it's just, life's going to get better. It's also more interesting. My God, the adventure, the highs and the lows. Like I probably shouldn't share too much, but yeah, I mean, it is a thrill, right? When you're in charge of your own income, and when you're in charge of your own company, it's something else.
If you're listening to this and you're pissed off and you got a bunch of Oreos in your mouth and you're playing Call of Duty, right? Like, there's a pretty clear thesis that can develop for your life, and this doesn't necessarily have to be the big aha moment that you have, but I would encourage everyone to just figure out what they like. And Taylor, to be honest, I've taken a few courses myself. I have wasted money on a few of them.
Okay.
So it sounds like you have a particularly good nose for a good course. And so are there any that you would recommend to everybody that they should take, that they should go through?
Yeah, I can speak more to the wholesale courses than the private label ones. So putting that aside for a second, I would say the ones that come to mind, the wholesale formula, Dan Meters has been at it for a long time. He holds a great conference every year. The way he goes about it is the right way. And actually, I think he was one of the first guys at this shift in wholesale when suppliers actually started realizing what was going on. It's like, hey, you're not like actually buying that, you're buying that to sell online. And so he has, you know, no spoil alerts here. He has a method for dealing with that, which is, well, how do you win accounts when people don't want more people to sell on Amazon?
Right.
That's why I think his course is good. And also I think he's in it for the right reasons. Larry Lubarsky of Watch Me Amazon. I will raise my hand and say, my partner and I have invested in it. I run a network of prep centers with my partners, and I still go into his course to look up little teeny tiny things. And I use some of his videos as just like reference material for training new people. Trent Deersmid, you and I talked about him last time we spoke, and he has his own podcast. He has a WEBS program, which is not a course. It's a set of SOPs specific to Amazon wholesalers, and it works great for what you should be doing in your day-to-day, and it works even better for how to train your VA or your team internally on what to do. I mean, these guys, you won't find people out there saying, oh, that was a waste, or they didn't teach me, or whatever. what's going to happen is you're going to have to look in the mirror after a few months and ask yourself, have I been taking action? Have I been doing the steps? Anyone who gets there and who does that, it's absolutely, you're going to see results. The two others, which I don't think they have formal courses, but I think are right now kind of currently top names in this Amazon education space specific to wholesale. The Amazon Lit guys are, well, they're hilarious, number one, but they're really knowledgeable, and they have free content, they have paid content. And Scott Needham of BuyBoxer, who I don't know personally, we've exchanged a couple of emails, but
yeah, he's out here in Utah.
Yeah, he's just on it with everything he does. I was listening to one of his podcasts, and somebody was saying something like, "Yeah, Scott, you like data." And he's like, "Yeah, I like data," blah blah blah. And they're talking about it, and Scott was like, "What? You're preaching to the choir here. I've downloaded the entire Amazon catalog. I mean, if you want to learn from someone who knows what they're doing, why don't you go for the guy who's downloaded the entire Amazon catalog and tried to get some insights from there? Like, that's a good place to start." So no Lamborghinis from Scott Needham, but he's just he's crushing it. So
those are all excellent recommendations. I think one thing that we found here at BuyBox Experts is that people come to us, and then when they can't afford the service that they probably need, there's usually they have trouble finding somebody or time in their own day to do the things that they need to do. And I think those are all excellent resources. So if you're a small seller and you're trying to get started, go to a few of these things. Scott Needham, right? The BuyBoxer podcast, it's got tons of episodes. You could learn from it. You listen to ours, you can learn from it. This is the time, to start investing in yourself. And these are we always try to get to the meat of what is actionable. And I think that this lineup is really good. Taylor, is there anything else that you want to tell our listeners? Any encouragement that you want to give them, or advice that you can leave them with, my FBA prep related or not?
I take from another wholesale expert, Todd Snively. He says, don't overcomplicate it. He says, when you're sitting there in the shower, ask yourself, what's the one thing I'm going to do today that's going to improve my business? And if you build on that every single day where you're doing something, you're going to pick your head up and you're going to realize that you are much farther along from where you started. And I don't know too much about your personal Amazon sales experience, Eric, but what I've realized myself is that like the first year of Amazon, it felt like I could not string together 2 $1,000 days in a row for the life of me. And I would every night check and say, this one, I'm gonna land at 750. I'm gonna land at 900. And I'd get $1,000. I'm like, I want to do $2,000. And is like, I remember what it felt like to hit, $1,000 a day. And that was that was a better feeling than hitting $5,000 a day. I don't know why. I mean, it was it was falling in love with the Amazon world. And my point is that looking back, coming so much farther than that and having higher sales than that, that was what hooked me. So you have to kind of pick your head up every so often and acknowledge your progress. My partner, Tom, at my FBA prep is always saying, wait a minute, guys, we got to celebrate this. We got to have, even if we're all quarantined and virtually cheersing on Zoom or whatever, he's like, we got to celebrate this win because life is good and it's getting better. And I hope that everyone can take some time to choose themselves, learn how to get better personally, professionally in your relationships during this time where we have a little bit more time to think about all that. And I think that'll do it.
Taylor, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Always a pleasure, Eric.
To finish today's podcast, I want to share some final thoughts. For brands to be successful on Amazon, a critical lever will be launching and managing Amazon advertising campaigns. We at BuyBox Experts are really big fans of the team at Kenshu. This sophisticated software helps brands to manage ad campaigns and gather further data intelligence across Amazon, Google, and Facebook platforms. We're excited that you joined us today. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the BuyBox Experts podcast. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web, and we'll see you next time.